Hello, I am Eric van Luijk and I'm going to give you a presentation about the course Change Management, about the book Exploring Strategic Change. This presentation will take about 7 minutes. I will give a presentation about the first 3 chapters. Let's start with chapter 1. 1.1 was an introduction. They said strategy can and indeed should be designed implementation by top management. New strategies down through the organization by using a detailed planning. The second point they told is strategic management is more of a negotiated process, subject to both managerial and cultural influences. The third point is new ideas, new strategies. These ideas exist because of the diversity in the organization. The fourth point is the language of the strategy, and strategists can be seen as constrained. The potential for organizational change and renewal is a struggle between the diversity of ideas and cultural and political inertia, which may also be captured in the language of the organization. Well, then we come to what is exploring strategic change. In the book, they see change management as a task. Organizational culture has essential importance. Change is about people. Change requires investment in terms of managerial time and energy, as well as financial investment. Successful change requires the development of a context-sensitive approach. And then we go to the second 1.2, the nature of organizational change. They tell us that change is continuous, with organizations transforming on an ongoing basis to keep pace with their changing environment. The second point is change is a process of punctuated equilibrium. Periods of adaptive and convergent change are interspersed by short periods of revolutionary change. Then you have A and a B of the revolutionary change. A is the convergent change. Adaptation within the existing way of doing things. B is the revolutionary change, what I told you before. Change in strategy, structure, systems, and culture leading to a different way of operating. The book says that both models are right, but apply to different types of organization and maybe different stages of an organization's life cycle. Yes. That was point 1.2 of chapter 1. Then we follow with 1.3, that is context-specific change. Change needs to be context-specific. The design and management of any change process should be dependent on the specific situation or context of each organization. Example, different cases. We move on to 1.4. Managerial skills for the change agent analyzes judgment and action. A change agent is a changer. That's what they call me in the book, as a synonym of change agent. Important for change agent to have the following skills: analytical abilities, judgmental skills, implementation skills, and self-awareness. That is the capacity to understand one's own prejudices, preferences, and experience. The way you are orientated results in different ways to think about change. An objective manager would feel more comfortable in a more direct change plan, including high involvement from all levels of the organization. Well, then we move on to the last sub-chapter of chapter 1, the transition state, designing context-sensitive approach to change. Well, you have 3 stadia of change. The first one is current state, the second one is transition state, and the third one, future state. Now, what is the purpose of these stadia? Knowledge about the current situation. Why does it need to change? Furthermore, important to know the consistent of the change, and also what has to be changed. So that is. You also have to make an analysis for the future state. And then we go further with the change kaleidoscope. It's a diagnostic framework will help the process by making of design choices. exists of 3 rings, outside to inside. The first one is the organizational change context. The second one is the characteristics of the change context, readiness, power, time, etc. And the third one, last ring, is design choices for change agents. Alright, that was chapter 1. We move on to chapter 2. Then in the first paragraph, they tell us about something about the 6 categories of the implementation choices. You have the change path, the change start, change style, change target, change levers, and change roles. We'll begin with the change path. In the book it says transformation is important. It's a fundamental change in the organization that causes shifting in the strategy, structures, systems, and procedures. Also, revolution is important. It's the most common, not available. People have to change in a short time. The third one is realignment, changing the way how things are done. Then you can define that in 2 things. You have adaptation, this is step by step, and you have reconstruction. It's way faster, but it's more dramatic. Then we also have nature, is the way how things are implemented. And that is also defined in 2 things. You have incremental, it's step by step, and you have the big bang, everything in one time. It's very busy, the nature is very busy. Now, and what is the most popular way? The book says it is evolution to reconstruction. It's the most commonly used change path. Then we go to paragraph 2.3, the change start point. There in the book we check where is the change initiated and developed, what is the degree of influence and control. The 3 main manners are 1, top-down, bottom-up, emergent method, and 3, pockets of good practice. Alright, then we go to paragraph 2.4, the change style. The change style contains how changes are being managed. So you have 5 different styles of changing. The styles, I will sum up the styles for you. 1 is education and delegation. 2, the collaboration style. 3, the participation style. 4, direction style, and 5 is the pressure style. Now then we move on to the change target. There are 3 different organizational levels. You have outputs, you have behavior, and you have values. There was a small paragraph, so we move on to 2.6, the change levers. It is hard to change, to implement, because companies exist of individual subsystems that are connected with each other. They are the most effective when the biggest system are in correlation with each other. So, what does it mean? You cannot isolate one part of the system because they are connected with each other, which will lead to failure in other compartments. Now, this is called the domino effect. That is called the domino effect. And then I'm going to tell you something about the subsystem. There are 6 subsystems. You have routine, stories, symbols, and power structure, organization structure, control, and paradigm. And what will lead to effective change is intervention in all the subsystems. What I told you about. Then we have 2.7, the change rules. Changing can be successful if someone is responsible for the leading of the change. If no one is responsible, it's not going to work. Also, the change agent needs support from other agents. Responsibility has to be divided by using a champion. A champion has to have lots of commitment and enthusiasm, and an important vision that has to be implemented. Now, then you have 4 different types of roles. You have the change champion, what I told you about, the external facilitation, the change action team, the functional delegation. Well, then we move on to the last chapter, chapter 3, and the first paragraph of chapter 3 is the contextual characterize. This contains out of 8 points. First one is time, second one is scope, third preservation, 4 diversity, 5 capability, capacity, readiness for change, and last but not least, power. 3.2 is time. In the book it says how much time there will be needed for implementation depends on the strategic analysis. You have different standards in companies caused by different environmental changes, and it depends on the perspective of the company. Well, then you have also different perspectives. You have the change management perspective, also known as the crisis situation. It's easy to change limits on methods and rules. And then you have the opposite of the change management perspective, it's the not crisis situation. You have more time, more resources in a calm way. Then we move on to scope. 3.3, the scope. And the scope, what it really is the outcome of the change. How much change is needed. And then you have the depth and width. And the depth means the changing path. And the width is the change in the organization. Then we go on to the preservation. And the preservation, what the books tell us, is the degree of where it is essential that the continuities are kept and that different methods holding the specific assets. Now, with the preservation, there are two dimensions. The first one is what are the assets, and the second one is decisions about the assets, which are kept and which not. It's very important. Then we move on to 3.5, diversity. Diversity is the degree of diversity between the personal. Is the company heterogenic or homogenic? Now then we come to one. What is diversity? Personal has different national cultures, different subcultures, different professional groups in the department. So that is what diversity is. And then we have the three dimensions that is spoken about in a company. Is the degree of diversity, the impact on personal because of the different loyalties, the degree of lowering of higher, the diversity by change agent, the degree of whether a company is capable of managing the changes. It is possible that the company has no experience, then the company is not capable of managing the changes. But they also can be developed and improved. That is what most common in companies. And then you have two different kinds of capability. You have the individual level and you have on the organizational level. And capability has effect on the design choices. As for change path, transformation is harder to reach, change targets, hardest values, change leverage, most of all cultural. And then we move on to 3.7, paragraph 3.7, capacity. Capacity is how many resources that can be invested by a company in the underestimated change in terms of money, time, and personal. And then the book tells us about three aspects. I already told that it's money, time, and people. And then we move on to 3.8, readiness. And in readiness you have two different levels. One, in which degree the employee is aware of the urgency of the change. Two, how many private commitments will be made by the change in terms of individual skills, behavior and work method. Besides the two different levels, you have two different shapes. One, the admissibility of a change program, a planned change, the idea of changing constantly for the work. And then we come to the last paragraph, 3.9, power. The place in the book there's told about the place where the power of the company is. It says you have external and internal stakeholders that have power with other individuals and departments. And then also here you have two different perspectives. One, you have personal power, and two, you have power of the organization to predict their own future. And why is power so important? Because people with power can stop the change. So if the change is not good, the people can stop the change, which is good for the company. This was my presentation. I hope it was okay, and I hope it was okay.